handicap otherwise.
Yeah, no, I think actually doing an extra year is really quite a good suggestion, but yeah,
we are in a war here, effectively, and I do wonder what happened with the Second and First World Wars, and whether, you know, they did something different for the education systems to try and make up for it. But I guess I have to look into that, or maybe the Spanish flu. I mean, perhaps that's a closer example. But
you'd have only had like 15% maximum going to university, so your sort of school leaving certificate or whatever. I mean,
yeah, but I think it impacts primary and secondary schools as well. And,
yeah, but First World War gave priority to people who'd either started at the beginning of the First World War or were due to start during the war. So people like my father, who was 18 in 1918 or 17 in 1918, who'd got an exhibition to Oxford, was asked to take a gap year. And when he did start, most of his contemporaries were up to 4 or 5 years older than him. And I imagine Cambridge did the same thing.
And in the wake of the Second World War, what they did was push people through faster rather than slower, rather than giving them extra time, because that was my father's generation. And you're expected to do your degree in 2 years, not 3, in order to accommodate the people who turned 18 and also the returning servicemen who'd not been able to take up university places during the war itself.
Interesting. Okay, Doreen, I think we're mostly back. I hand back to you.
Thank you. Right, that's a first for the society, because we've never, the first time in all these years that we've gone into the pre-expulsion Jewish community. So I think that was quite interesting, really. Okay, so we'll go to questions. Who has got a comment or needs some help or wants to say anything at all or ask a question? Do you want to, I can't see hands raised, it doesn't work on mine, so.
Valerie? You want to unmute, Valerie? Valerie, you're still muted.
Can Valerie hear? Is Valerie there? Anybody else? Any?
Sorry.
There we go.
I could hear you, but I couldn't find the.
Okay.
My question, Doreen, is for you. I've been in contact with the archives in Hammersmith, and because, of course, lockdown and so forth, there's not been much between us. But I'm trying to find about newspapers for 1945. I know that there was a fire in my grandmother's house, and it was reported in local press, but I haven't been able to find out where I would find that copy, where I would be able to find the local newspaper for Hammersmith area.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
I think Hazel may know the answer.
It's worth checking with the British Newspaper Archive online whether or not they've reached that point in their
microfilm
digitization. You know, eventually we should have all our local newspapers.
Thank you. Okay.
Or else, Valerie, have a look online and see which newspaper would have been the relevant one.
That's what I'm trying to find. I don't know where to look.
Online is the only. I have got a book here, actually. In fact, I have got a book here. I could look it up.
It doesn't have to be this minute.
No, but they may have their own archives, even if it hasn't been.
I've been to the archives in Hammersmith. It's just at Batwick there, where the road, all the new roads, they're new to me, because when I was a little girl, that didn't exist at all. But they weren't able to help. They couldn't even give me the name of the paper from 1945. There was nobody there old enough to remember.
They should know, but they should be able to look it up. A paper probably under Camden, I would think. Probably under the Borough of Camden, the Camden News, or whatever the local paper was at that time.
Yes.
Thought it was Camden. not talking about Hampstead.
No, but this is
Hammersmith.
Hammersmith is Kensington,
Right,
you know, that sort of area.
So whichever one would cover that area.
Shepherd's Bush, you know, that side.
Yeah.
Willing's Press Guide used to be the book to look at, but I'm very out of date these days. It may no longer exist.
Willing's?
Yes, Press Guide.
Okay.
But as I say, I'm out of date.
I'll Google it. The other thing that I need help with is who would have been on the throne in 1906.
Edward the Seventh.
Edward the Seventh.
Edward the Seventh.
Yeah. Queen Victoria had died, and it was her son, Edward.
So it was that. It was Edward.
Yes.
Definitely Edward the Seventh.
And the Queen.
Queen Alexandra.
It is Alexandra.
Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is very, very interesting. We had a China tea service in my mother's home, which belonged to the Queen. And she gave it as a present to my great-great-grandmother. So we've been trying to go back in time to find it. I thought that there were court records in like the Times newspaper, you know, you have a column that says what's going on today.
Yes.
And I thought it'd be very easy. I would go back to around that time, look to see what was going on and who the Queen invited to tea, because that's the story, that the Queen invited them to tea and then gave them the tea set.
But it was her official visits. That
It was an official visit.
Unofficial.
No, it was an official visit.
Yes, well, you're right.
So I wrote to Archives, and she said, I've obviously missed the year. I mean, I don't know exactly what year. Apparently, Edward and Alexander did a world tour or something after he was crowned. They weren't in England very much that first year or so. So I probably looked it up too early. So she's not going to sit there and do my work. So she just said there was nothing in court records of that year.
Nothing in the year, because sometimes somebody would take the place of the Queen.
Aha. Oh, I never thought of that.
It means going through the Times newspaper.
Yes. Yes.
Did you have a comment on this, Tony Allen, or is it a separate question?
Yeah, no. It is about it. In the days when Colindale was open, the British Library, great place to go to. But anyway, they used to have an index book there, which I'm sure they've still got in wherever they are nowadays. And the index book is by area. And I'm sure if you emailed them, they would send you a list of newspapers on that date, etc.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Another comment from Hazel.
Jane, if you take out a small subscription, say for a month, on British newspaper archive online, you could do a search of your family names, and you could refine by date. And
that sounds wonderful.
See if they pop up.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Does that help, Valerie?
Wonderful. Thank you. Because I'm really stuck, because nowhere is open. No one is responding. I've sent emails and things, but no one responds.
But don't lots of libraries have subscriptions to things like ancestry.com, and through that digital, particularly during lockdowns, I think they're giving readers access to online version, online Ancestry, where you might find the newspaper.
Ancestry. That wouldn't help much.
Got Ancestry, but nothing came up.
Yeah, I think it's Find My Past that has.
Is it Find My Past?
Yeah.
It's not nearly as easy to look up as the version on British Newspapers Archive Online.
That sounds wonderful.
I think it is British Archives Online, but it's the same data.
But it's a much harder approach. I don't know why.
Thank you all.
Okay. I thought I saw someone with their hand up.
Yes, it was me.
Oh yeah, Gina.
I was also going to say Find My Past, and Val, I can look anything up for you if you email me the details. I'll have a look on Find My Past newspapers.
Thank you very much. I will.
Valerie, what I think you need is the Times Digital Archive, which you can get free from some libraries, which might answer the question.
I think the Times Digital Archive is actually available to everyone from home, but
I used to
think
do it
they
from the
stopped,
library. Yes.
Yeah, they stopped the latest years when you're not at a library, or it's not quite as good as there in person.
Yeah.
That you might
I know
get
I
lucky.
used to do it at the library, but that was when we lived in Hendon. I used to go into the library there and work.
Yes.
But that's some time ago. I haven't done anything recently.
If you belong to a local library, you might find that it's included in offline information.
No, I haven't. I don't belong to Edgware or anywhere nearby.
Can't get into Edgware Library at the moment. They're only
No, you can't.
4 days a week, and you can telephone them.
But you can do it with a reader's ticket, with a library ticket.
Yeah, but I don't have for Edgware.
No, you don't have one. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, then the forms.
Yeah.
In March.
You will get it. You will find it. You will get to the answer of that. I'm quite sure.
Thank you very much. I will try all the
online.
Okay.
See if you can join your local library online. See if there's a form.
I filled in the form, but unfortunately it's not been processed.
Right.
So that was March.
Oh, probably
I see a couple of
lockdown,
a couple of hands up, Doreen. We have Mark Michaels and then David Roth.
Thanks. Just to say, I think the newspaper you want for 1945 is probably the Fulham Chronicle.
Oh, thank you.
That's helpful.
Very helpful.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
David, your little blue hand is up.
Yes.
No?
blue hand.
Okay, I'll put it down. Don't worry.
How can I put a blue? Where's my blue hand?
It's all right. I put it down. Okay. Should we go to Henry Roche?
I can't find my blue hand. Where is it?
Yeah, it's okay. I see your pink hand. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. While on the subject of libraries, I haven't been very much, but I suddenly found I need to go to your library, our library, which of course is not open. Are there plans for it to be opened if allowed in December?
Is anyone here from the library committee, or I can probably
I
do my
haven't
best.
heard a word.
Okay, I mean, you know, we clearly can't open until it's safe. I don't think it'll be December. We're trying to go for January, but I don't think anyone really knows for sure what's going to happen on December the 2nd at the moment. So
an alternative idea is the particular books I want to find are things that I've never actually bought. The 2 books by Harold and Miriam Lewin.
Yeah, no, we're very aware of that, and there's actually a way of sending in a request, and someone with those books can look it up for you.
Well, I just wondered if there was anybody here today who's anywhere near Wimbledon who actually has these books.
Hazel is waving. I don't know if she's
near Wimbledon, but if you send me a couple of names, I'll look them up. I live in Brentford, but I'm supposed to shield, so I don't encourage visitors, but I don't mind looking them up.
It's a bit more than a couple of names, that's the trouble. So I really need to look at the books, but I'll have to wait. It's all right.
You need to study the by the sound of it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I am actually also working on something with the Lewin books and trying to make them available digitally, which I think will solve your problem, but it is going to take a few months. So I just don't know how long this whole thing is going to be with us. And by the time I've digitized them all, we may find it's over, but it may still be a useful thing because, you know, even to look on, say, the website and look something up is a lot more convenient. Now, we'd love to do that for all of our books in the library, but we've only had permission from Mr. Lewin, Harold Lewin, so far. So, but you know, we've asked the questions of the Bevis Marks books, and you know, some of the other Abertano ones, but copyright is a bit of a tricky thing.
Right.
Doreen?
Yeah, I can't see. I can't see. Unfortunately, I can't see hands going up on my computer, so I can't tell you who's.
Okay, I'll look for you. Anyone else with a question?
I was just going to suggest this business between Wimbledon and Brentford. I mean, there's nothing to stop the gentleman in Wimbledon driving to Hazel's house, she leaving the book on the doorstep once he's rung the bell and retreated for him, and then he can either read it in his car or alternatively take it home and bring it back the next day.
Wonderful.
I'm just wondering whether genealogy is considered essential by the government or not. But anyway, I won't make that decision for you.
If you want to do that, Henry, that's fine.
Maybe a question of mental health, actually.
Well, that, and of course,
Henry, that's brilliant.
What Lee doesn't, Lee being a youngster, of course, as we get older and the end is nearer, it gets more important that we get things done. So that could become a matter of urgency.
So, any other statements to make? How you're getting on with your own projects? Has anybody been doing anything special during the lockdown?
I think Hazel's waving.
Yeah.
Last Saturday, I attended the Federation of Family History Societies conference, the really useful something or other. And I really listened to some excellent talks. I hope some other people took it up as well. I was an early booker for it, which cost me all of a £5. I'm really attracted to things where there are talks that will take me a bit further on understanding DNA analysis. And there were a couple I found very helpful, and other talks that were simply fun. There was one on starting with Scottish research, and another on the Gentleman's Magazine, which I used to browse years ago, and I listened to a similar enthusiast for it. It's, you know, tremendous for sort of social history and picking up on individuals. You know, these things outside the Jewish area of family history can be very relevant to all of us.
I think it was totally outside in that I think Jeanette and Mark were manning a virtual booth. I don't quite understand how it works, but
Jeanette gave a talk.
Yeah.
I didn't attend it because I wasn't starting in Jewish family history. I thought I would be interested to hear something else.
Sure. But no, I mean, we do like to attend them. Unfortunately, they are on a Saturday usually, which, you know, can be a problem for some of us. But yeah, anyway, but no, you're perfectly right. There are lots of online shows at the moment replacing all the physical ones, and yeah, definitely do give them a look.
There's Roots Tech soon, well, in February, I think, the 3 days in the States.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure Roots Tech is completely free as well. So they're definitely doing a good thing there. I can't remember quite how many days it is, but you're right about the February. But I've certainly either registered interest or signed up. I can't quite remember where I am in the process, but I'm looking forward to it. And you know, Roots Tech London was meant to be the first of many, and then this all happened. So yeah,
it was very good. The talks were.
Yeah.
I have some news about the cemetery at Bulls Pond Road. It's been now listed as Grade 2 by National English Heritage rather than just as a local site, which is very pleasing. It's taken a long time, but it means that the remains will not be disturbed and it won't be built on. So that at least is good news.
And Doreen actually wrote an obituary in the latest Shemot, the very first article, to Janet Gershman, who worked on that with Doreen. So yeah, Slightly sad timing, given that, yeah, she passed away just before it received grade 2 status. But, yeah.
Yes, she did the public relations side of it, and we worked together on it. So she was a very early member and a founding member of the society. So she is actually a loss to us, really. And she was a friend. But being the lockdown, this is the ideal time, really. We've only got a week or so to go to try and find the time to do some of the things that we don't usually find the time to do.
Nita?
Yeah, I don't know. I got an email from Petra Laidlow. I don't exactly understand what she's trying to do with the 1851 census. Sort of, I gather she wants more names, or does anybody know if she wants sort of to go further and sort of tracing these families into sort of more the present times? Has anybody got any further information?
Susie?
I think, as I understand it, she wants, she thinks of about 2,000 people that are missing from her records, and she wants information on those if we have them. That is, as I understand it. But for the same date, for the 1851.
Right. So
do we as a society have something special regarding the 1851 census that isn't on the regular 1851 census? I know that was a big piece of work.
Sorry, not the 51 census, the 1851. Petra Laidlow's book on the 1851, the Jews in England at that time.
Oh, okay.
Do you know the thing I mean? Hang on a minute.
No, I do know, but I mean, I thought it was based on the 1851 census. That was the source.
No, but she hasn't. I mean, but I don't know how you pick out everybody who's Jewish from it. You see, I've got this exciting book.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's the index of it.
Did you want to say something, Sue?
Yes, I did a lot of work on that, and it wasn't all based on censuses. Because so many of my family were here in 1851, I was able to work on a lot of families, and I also did a lot of research on families who lived in South London, particularly Southeast London, south of the river, and some of them I followed back to the 1790s and forward to about 1880 or beyond. So I did a lot of work like that, and there were a lot of people who were not in the census, particularly some of my relatives who were traveling around. And I think so the rest of the family were in the census, so they were added because they were quite clearly in England or in the United Kingdom at that period. Sometimes they'd pop over abroad on business, but people have been left out of the census, or they were wrongly recorded.
So we give it till 20.
I wonder where she gets this 2,000 people from. Where does she get this figure from?
Yes, I wondered that. They're talking around turn of the century. You might pick up information.
Who knows? It's gone down to 34.
So
database also includes people who had been born Jewish and converted.
Right.
A number of families from Poland where that happened who'd come to England in the 1830s, 1840s, and some of them became did a lot of proselytizing. And they're included in the database, and it may be some of those that she's referring to.
Maybe. Thank you.
But I've also discovered a lot more of my relatives went to America than I'd thought in the 1840s. So they were here earlier, and they emigrated, I think, in the 1830s and 1840s, probably a dozen or more. Plus a lot went to Australia.
Yeah, I think a lot of sort of Anglo-Jewish families would probably find that. They just weren't on the 1851 census. They weren't here on the 1851, so they can't be included.
They're not included because they'd already left it.
Exactly.
And it was on quite a large scale. I mean, some parts of my family, I think my great-grandfather's siblings, nearly all of them emigrated between 1840 and 1850 or 1855. And that's throughout my family, it's like that. So it must have been the case with a lot of other Anglo-Jewish families.
Well, in many cases, it was because of the gold rush that they were attracted to going, and often it was young men who went besides whole families. But they did think they'd make their fortunes abroad, and many of them did. And then it was the diamond fields of Kimberley as well.
Yeah,
many of them did make fortunes. Not all of them, but some of them. So that's how they went.
I think as genealogists, we should all promise to always leave 1 year after a national census rather than 1 year before when we go and seek our fortunes. Okay. Dashed unsporting to leave just before. So.
We have to think of these things.
Does anyone have any sort of knowledge of when the 1921 census is going to be made available to us?
It should be 2022 is the normal time. I don't know whether it will be.
I think they definitely said it couldn't be early in the way that the 1911 was, but I don't really understand why, but it's something to do with a different structure to the law that asks for it to be done. But it is frustrating, but we'll get there. I just hope there aren't any administrative delays due to COVID. But as far as I know, they're working on it at the National Archives with Find My Past Again, I think it is, and it is underway, but they just cannot press the button until they're legally allowed to.
Thank you.
Adrian Ross is asking a question about the 1851 census, the information that Petra would like. And she says a lot of her ancestors were here, although they are well documented. Adrian, do you want to say anything? Adrian Ross? Put a question.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. No, I just wondered what names were required. But then you know a lot of the names, the Levis, Russells, etc. So just wondered if they required any information with dates or whatever, because I've got quite a few of the dates when my ancestors were here. I think the original Michael Levy was here in the early 1720s. So yeah, if anybody wants any information, I could probably.
I think Petra is just collecting any census, Jewish census, Jewish people who were here in 1851 and their census, the information to go into her book on the 1851 census. So she'd be the person to contact.
So is this an official question to the society, or I didn't see it?
No, not really.
I had an email, as I imagine Anita did, because I've mentioned it to her before. She said as a contributor. I'm not sure I was, but anyway.
Okay.
Wasn't done on behalf of the society, the 18 book, but obviously it's of interest to the society.
Yeah, I mean, Anita, why don't you put something in the blog or something like that, and then it will just sort of reach a reasonable number of interested people in the society, and I assume Petra doesn't mind her details being mentioned in such a thing, or you could ask first. But...
I'll do that.
Good idea.
I just noticed Danielle has a little blue hand up.
I was just going to say, presumably she has some indication of the number of Jews that were over here and reckons that she's identified all but about 2,000. But the reason she can't identify them may be because they don't have Jewish names or they weren't here on Census Day, as you've been saying. So presumably she's simply asking us to check her database and see if some of our ancestors are not recorded. I mean, I know when many years ago, quite a few years ago, when she first produced the database, I gave her details of some of my ancestors that I knew were over here that she hadn't managed to identify. So I imagine that's what the question is.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very easy in my case because there's a very round number of ancestors who were around at that time, being very, very Ashkenazi. So anyway.
Well, a lot of them were Ashkenazi, Lee. They weren't all, the Sephardi's were always the minority.
Okay, Eastern European 1880s plus you know, exports, whatever. Yeah.
Mine weren't here. But then what I found is, because of the DNA, I found out that yes, I am Anglo-Jewish, although my family came here in the 1900s, because some of my family had come here earlier. Not the direct family, but the indirect family. So there you are. It goes round in a circle, doesn't it?
It does.
You might have some. Okay. David Ross, do you have you been doing anything special while the last few weeks?
Do you want to unmute, David?
Yeah.
Not sure. David, did you want to say something?
Did you?
If you want to unmute? No. Okay. That was a no from David. But
Okay. Louise Mason, have you been working at anything particular? Louise Mason.
You're on mute, Louise.
Absolutely. I am absolutely inundated with people from all over the world keep contacting me, either through DNA, through my tree, everything. I've got lines coming out here, there, and absolutely everywhere. I have actually, this weekend, I spotted a DNA test with my original surname, Ziman, Z-I-M-A-N. And thanks to Professor Eric Goldstein of Emory University, a Ziman Simon descendant and professor of history, Jewish history, he has slotted this Ziman man into our tree. I come up as third cousin, fourth cousin, but I believe I might be DNA to him twice over. And he's only just started exploring his Jewish ancestry. And then obviously from the DNA, people are popping up through, shall we say, indiscretions in the family.
Sounds fascinating.
So I've now got 7,500 people on my own tree.
Goodness me.
Quite a family reunion.
Somebody I missed there. Tony, have you been doing any more research on your family at all?
Yes, but not so much on the English side. I've managed to find some on my father's side who originated from Poland, so I've been concentrating on that a little bit. But there is, I don't know if you remember, on the Raphaels, there was the, I think I gave a talk once about, oh dear, Dorothy Levitt, a very famous motor car driver, etc. I'm doing a little bit of research for that because a gentleman who's a author is producing a book about her. Because there's lots of sort of mini books and leaflets written about her, and there's a big Wikipedia write-up about her, but nobody's produced a full book, and he's trying to do that. So I'm working with him on that side of it. So we think we found where she was during the First World War, and that's what stopped everybody finishing anything, because she disappeared from about 1911 to 1921. She died in 22. So I can't wait for those censuses to come out, because that would help a hell of a lot. But we're not going to be able to wait for that. We're going to have to try and get the book out sometime next year, beginning of next year.
Right. Are you publishing it yourselves?
No, well, I think this gentleman is. He is a sports writer, so he's probably going to do it all himself. But yes.
Thank you. It should be interesting to see that. Thank you very much. Okay, Rebecca, have you been up to anything special? Rebecca, have you been up to anything special since we last met?
Yes, still the brick wall element, I'm afraid. And Louise, who has been doing it for like 14 years, still she can't help us get any further. What has happened about a week ago is we got a new DNA match, and we believe there may have been, this is on my husband's side, there may have been an indiscretion.
Right.
So we're just trying to find out whether it's the maternal side or the paternal side of one set of grandparents.
Right. That sounds like fun. Never know what you're going to.
You don't. And as far as Lee, thank you very much for, I think it was last week, for all the sites from the Ukraine. But again, I don't know. But I did have one breakthrough. We received a photo from so it's my husband's side, the Mazza side. So that's my husband's paternal side, and he was married to Bienstock. And one of the Mazza cousins, so a true Mazza, sent a photo, and then on the back of the photo it said Rembrandt Studios or something like that. So I looked that up, and lo and behold, it said the photographer was J. Bienstock. So there must be some connection there, but I don't know how to follow that through.
Right. To keep looking, never give up. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Hazel Dakers, have you been anything since we last met? Anything special? Can't hear you.
Oh, that's it. What I've been doing, it probably isn't 100% of interest to some people, but I've been helping a cousin on my non-Jewish line. My mother's mother was not Jewish, my other grandparents were. And so 3/4 of my genealogy only is Jewish. But I have a second cousin who I got to know through genealogy, whose husband has wanted all his life to know who his father was. One of those accidents you mentioned. And she and I managed to find our great-grandmother's mother. No, the father. Our great-grandmother was illegitimate through my treating her to a DNA test and then looking for common matches. And amazingly, we came up with one a couple of years ago. And it's opened up a whole line in America. But that made her husband think that maybe it would be worth him doing a DNA test. And they discussed it with me. And I said, well, you know, it's always possible, but you can't rely on it. And so he did one. And more recently, I managed to get access to it from them to drop it into several different companies' databases so that we had 3 or 4 pools of other DNA testers to look at rather than just the original one. And you can do that for nothing. It's really worthwhile. And I found in my heritage, which is never of any use to me in the matches it comes up with, that there were several for him, quite close ones, and they all had the same surname within their trees. The name is Snow. And so my cousin, who's done a certain amount of family history in terms of looking at censuses and that sort of thing, is now working away on building up a tree. I did a very rough one, putting together the information that may well be faulty in places from these 3 or 4 different people to give her a basis. And now, unfortunately, she's had COVID the last few weeks. She lives in Manchester, but she's hoping to get back to it again soon. And she's building up a tree, both looking at descendants of the earliest Snow that we found, but also working up the other way from these trees that we looked at and put together. And that's rather exciting, really, because I'm hoping that in the end, we'll have a wide number of people at the bottom of the tree or towards the bottom. And we need to find someone who was in the British Army at the end of the war, just after the end of the war, stationed in Germany. And so it's going to be a matter of looking at the men of a certain age range and trying to find out, first of all, if they were in the forces then, and second, to approach any descendants to see whether we can discreetly find anything out that way.
Well, thank you. Sounds fascinating.
Well, it really is, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not Jewish, but it's still relevant, I think.
It's still genealogical. And there is a Jewish link in yourself. So there you go. John Perlman, have you been making any progress or?
Can you hear
me? Yeah.
Yeah. No, just a small point. Since last week, I am on my heritage. So I've gone the full whack, the top membership. So I managed to get to a great uncle, my grandfather's brother-in-law, and they went to America. So they went to America about 1903, but this is an application for naturalization they did in 1905. We've got details of these relatives from over there. Just a small point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At this point, can I introduce you to a guest we have here, my friend Suzette Greenberg, and she actually has got some Sephardi background. Sue, you've got some Sephardi in your background in the Henriques. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I have done now.
Henriques.
Thank you, Doreen.
Okay.
On my mother's side of the family, the name was Henriques, and they can be traced right back to Cromwell, evidently, on that side of the family, which is interesting. On my father's side of the family, we only know his parents from Poland, Russia, and we can't go any further back than that, so we have to assume the worst. So in other words, the family tree on my father's side is very long and wide, like that. On my mother's side, it goes like a long way back. And I have a cousin who's done a lot of research into the Henriques side of the family. So that's a short summary.
Thank you. So you'll have to go to the Sephardi special interest group. It might be of interest to you. We have a Sephardi special interest group.
Yes.
So it might be of some interest to you.
You want to comment on that, Sue?
Yes, I've got quite a lot of Henriques relatives. One of my grandfather's sisters married a Henriques, and one of my grandmother's cousins married a Henriques, and they were Quixano Henriques. And I think they'd probably been in England 17th century.
That's right.
Most of them went abroad and then
traced right back to Cromwell, I understand.
Possibly, but there was 2 or 3 different Henriques families. What is the full name? If they've got Q Henriques, I've got quite a few relatives.
I know there's a Manchester connection. Margaret Henriques and Annie Henriques who lived to be 100.
Margaret Henriques was my father's first cousin.
Pardon?
Margaret, whose mother was Annie Barnard.
Annie Henriques.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're related.
Annie Henriques. Well, yeah. Annie was my great aunt.
Oh, well, she was also my great aunt.
There you are, you see.
Could be sisters.
I used to see her. They lived just off Baker Street.
Oh no, this Annie Henriques lived in North Manchester, and I understand she was over 100 when she died.
Is it the same one?
Not the same one then.
No.
It might not be.
Family, I think.
Did you want to comment on that as well, Susie?
Yes, I've got several Quixano Henriques on my family tree, going back to Jamaica, and I hate to say it, but Abigail was a slave owner. She was Abigail Quixano, and she married Moses Israel Henriques she was 1748 she was born, and she married in Jamaica in 1810, and that's where the Quixano Henriques seem to have joined together. But she actually, when she was widowed, I think it was, in the slave register of 1817, I'm afraid she's got no, hang on, she's got a few slaves somewhere. I've lost it now, but anyway, she had 9 slaves at one stage. Anyway, they were in Jamaica, the Quixano.
I know there is some connection with Jamaica, which
but I think that seems to be where the name joins. She's Abigail Quixano, as I say, and the other one, and her husband's Moses Israel Henriques. So that's presumably where it all joined together.
Yes.
Anyway, that's all.
Yes, I know there is some connection with Jamaica, but I think it's
big connection. They're all out there. I mean, they're all born out there, you know. It goes back. I can go back further on that, actually.
I don't think there was some illegitimate connection that we're not very proud of.
It happened.
Moses was born out there in 1740, as was his father, born in 1718 in Kingston, Jamaica. They've been out there for donkey's years, I think. Can't remember how far I can go back to on it.
The lot of them came
and
back.
And then the Moses, they went out from Moses Israel Henriques was born in Spain in 1690. So they went out there in, wherever they went out there, between 1690, about 1700, they went to Jamaica.
Thank you.
So that's all.
Thank you very much.
I'll put myself on mute again.
Doreen, I got a message from Joel saying he wanted to say something. I'm not sure if yeah.
Of course, Joel, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Doreen. Just to say, I mean, I've been, as you know, if you read in the press, I've been doing lots of family reunions and things, but we had quite an interesting breakthrough just a month ago with the kind of Welsh-English family for my Bloom family from Wales. Is I collaborate with a cousin in America, and he's got lots of subscriptions to newspapers and that. I'll just talk about 4 siblings born in Wales, a daughter and 3 children. The surname was Marks. Now, he descends from the youngest son who was quite notorious. He got the local Welsh mayor, the local mayor's daughter pregnant, and they scooted off to America, and he descends from that one. But there was another brother who we know went to America as well. And we knew they had 2 children, a daughter called Ina Marks, which is was quite a common name at the time, and a son called Ivor Marks. Now, we knew that Ivor sadly got killed in the Second World War. He was in the Navy. So he got killed in off the coast of Manila in the Philippines. And we knew there was a daughter, Ina, and we could not find anything. And really just a month ago, Doreen, as you say, you can never underestimate newspapers for looking for information. And this cousin, you know, keep looking. And basically he found something that led us to possibly the marriage of Ina to somebody with a surname of Small, S-M-A-L-L. He wasn't sure if this was the right Ina, but then when he then found an obituary for an Ina Small, and there it said she was from Newport, Wales. So we knew we'd had the right family. And just using various things, whatever you can get online on Ancestry and Family Search and other newspapers. And we discovered she had 2 children and possibly grandchildren. And using Facebook, literally within a few days, I sent messages to two of the granddaughters of this Ina, not expecting to get anything back, and lo and behold, they are the family. So we were very lucky because we'd organized like a Zoom meeting for just the small family group. And within a week, I was able to put the whole family together. And the sad thing is also is, so I've got pictures, we've got everything, but we finally found out via just a little clue where the family born in Wales, the great-grandparents were buried. And I've only been to one big cemetery in New Jersey, and that's the cemetery that Ina's, the one who, and the brother who got killed in the war, where her parents were buried. And I was at the cemetery and of course never knew they were there, but I put something on Find a Grave, which is a very useful thing to use, especially for American research. And within a week, you know, sometimes you can wait years before you get anything. Within a week, I had gravestone photos of this Louis Marks and Lily Marks from Hull. Anyone who's got Harris connections to Hull, she was part of that family. And it was quite sad because this couple, they had one daughter who then moved away from New Jersey and a son who was killed in the war. And since basically their stones were put up, I suppose in the late 1950s, no one has actually visited the gravestone, so they're not in good shape. But it was quite a very successful breakthrough in a very short period of time, just thanks to newspapers and Facebook and things like that. But there's another brother, and we just cannot find him. We just cannot find him. I don't know if anyone's got connections down to Brighton and Hove, but there was a brother called Chaim Lazarus Marks who married a Miriam. Fine, this was all in Wales, and I can't find anything for them. I can't find deaths for them. I can't find burials. But there was a daughter called Zena Ray Marks who married a guy called Harry Rich, and I don't know if they had any children, but I think they buried in Brighton or in Hove. So I don't know if anyone's got any connections there. And there was a daughter, Sarah Marks, as you can see, very common names. And there was a Phyllis Marks who married a Percy Masters. Whether they had any children or anything, but looking through all the usual things, I cannot find anything. So it's just another dead end.
I think Tony Allen may have a
yes, Tony
for you.
Yeah, hi Joel. Yeah, I had found an ancestor that was buried in Brighton, and I went down there in between the 2 lockdowns, and they are actually putting the names from the cemeteries on. They're putting them in order at the moment and putting them online. So I do have
Florence Place, isn't it?
There's 2, one next door to each other. There's actually two in the same area.
But we do have a Brighton group, Joel. So Michael Shade and Naomi Leon they're probably the ones working on that project right now.
So people in the Brighton Hove area, were they all pretty much buried just in probably one of those 2 cemeteries, Tony?
As far as I know, yes, that's the only 2 cemeteries they gave me. There's an old one which is obviously now closed, and then there's a newer one. Well, I say newer. I think it's from the late 1900s.
And who's
like Middle Street and Florence Place or something like that? Or am I getting my names? No.
No, Florence Place is the cemetery. Middle Street's the synagogue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Tony, I mean, is anyone doing anything with the Bournemouth Jewish cemeteries and for JCR UK? I mean, they've done amazing stuff with Liverpool and that. Is anything happening with the Bournemouth cemeteries down there that anyone knows of?
I don't know anything about the Bournemouth ones, no.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joel. John Shaw, do you have any, you're on mute, if you unmute yourself, do you have anything progress to tell us or questions? Can you unmute yourself, please? Unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, hello.
That's it.
Yes. No, I haven't got anything, any questions at the moment that are relevant. I've enjoyed the meeting, a very useful and interesting discussion.
Thank you very much.
Talk. Picked up a few points, but I haven't got anything new.
Okay.
Been a bit quiet recently for me.
Sarah, Sarah Montague, have you got anything to tell us about what you've been doing?
No, nothing in particular. Been investigating a couple of family portraits because we had on the Goldsmith side of the family, we had a portrait which was said to be of I mean these are the family of Benjamin Goldsmith, who was a financier in Nelson's time.
Yes, yes.
And he had he committed suicide because he had because his business was going under, and all his 5 children and his wife converted to Christianity. I think mainly so that the children could get and all of his sons went into the army, which wouldn't have been possible if they'd been still been Jewish. We had a portrait which was supposed to be of James, one of his younger sons, but looking at it, I decided that it couldn't possibly be because he died. He died in a troop ship in 1814 at the age of 23. And this portrait was a chap who already had male pattern baldness, and I thought this couldn't possibly be the same person. So we did some investigation into the uniforms and the medals and so on, and discovered that it must be a portrait of his brother Albert, who was fought at the Battle of Waterloo. But it was fun investigating, as I say, the uniforms and the medals and the different ages. But
thank you very much.
Doreen,
Yes.
can I ask you, have you ever done anything on the Spillmans?
No, but I know who they are.
I did find something out, Reeseville, about 3 or 4 months ago, that one of the Raphaels married a Spillman. So I started, I'm not sure if it was Isidore or Adam. I haven't got my notes here, but married into the family. And what was fascinating was that this particular Spillman lived in Fulham. He had, the house was so big, and he couldn't get to shul, so he even had a shul built inside the house in the small room.
Yeah.
So it must have been very big. And the building itself was knocked down, and the flat where Diana Spencer lived is on the same plot of land.
That's interesting, isn't it? They're a very interesting family, I think, the Spillmans. So I think there's a lot to find out there.
Yes, they were all bankers. Isidore, they all became Sir Meyer Adams, Isidore. They all were quite wealthy, but didn't pass the money down to me. Mind you, it's quite a distant relationship. It's just one of the Raphaels married into the family.
Yeah. To go back to Sarah Montague, Sarah, are you related to those Goldschmidt family? Benjamin?
Yes, my great grandmother Gladys Swathelin. I mean, her father was a later Albert Goldsmith, the chap who founded the JLGB and
British Lads Brigade, wasn't he?
again. Yeah, Jewish Lads Brigade. Yeah, because the thing was, as I say, his ancestors converted to Christianity, and he discovered in his 20s that he came from a Jewish family and converted back. Yeah, it's a fascinating character.
Yeah, the whole family is fascinating. So there's a lot to do there, isn't there?
And actually, I mean, they're connecting to these Spearmans as well. They're on the Montague side. There are Spearmans knocking around.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Anita, sorry, I've left you towards the end.
The only thing I'm sort of trying to do is help. I have a niece in Portugal, and she wants to go for Portuguese nationality, which has nothing to do with this group. But so I am trying to work on sort of helping her with giving her certificates and things like that. But then she's on her own. We'll help her, but I think she has to do this sort of on her own.
Okay, but I'm sure
David Mendoza can help as well.
Yes, but it costs quite a lot of money at the end of the day. It costs a lot of money, and you submit your application to the Jewish community, but it's if they don't accept it or there's something wrong, it's non-refundable. That's the problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Anita. Raymond, I'm sorry you haven't come to you sooner.
No problem there, listening intensely to others. It's just mainly for Tony. Tony, years ago, we were working on the Raphaels, and you mentioned Spielman. Well, I found the Spielman in my Jessel tree, who's married to my father was a Claude Meyer Spielman. I've got a feeling it's in your tree.
That's one of the sons of Isidore, I think. I'd have to look it up, but yes, it's one of the sons.
Okay. Right, thank you. The names go back like Schloss there, Wiener, Prinz, many names there. Nathan Raphael of Harwich is the first one I have.
No, that one I haven't got.
It's going back to 1700. I was one before him, Joachim Raphael. Joachim, 1700. So yeah, we got a connection there.
Although I am trying to find where the Raphaels came from, because I do know that they came originally from Amsterdam, and they married at the Great Synagogue. One was from Amsterdam and the wife was from Germany. But that's as far as I got. I could never find any connection in Amsterdam or anybody, Raphaels in Amsterdam. I think there's too many of them.
There's a connection with the Western Synagogue with Raphael. I don't know if it's anything to do with it. The Western Synagogue, there's a connection with the family of Raphaels.
Oh. No, that I haven't come across. So I'll have to have a look, see if there's anything there.
Okay, thank you. Gina, have you got any news? Anything? Yeah, can you unmute? No. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, there's only the same family that I was still doing that you know about, the Hart, Esther Hart, whose father was reputedly Michael Hart, which I've not been able to find anywhere. Still stuck on it. So I'm just trying to see if I can bring up the tree. Yeah, Esther Hart, born 1896, and according to a marriage certificate, and her father was Michael Hart, a fishmonger. Anyone got any connections? Anyway, I'd be pleased to hear from anyone who knows anything, because I'm stuck.
There is a connection.
It's a very simple name and a simple,
There is a connection that we've discussed with part of our heart, but how that's connected, I'm not quite sure. But it was to do with.
Well, the only Esther Hart I found on a census who fits the bill is shown as an adopted daughter.
Yeah.
So
I only know a Rona heart. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. We're talking about quite a lot earlier, that thing. And heart is such a common name.
Yeah.
Very, very common name, which is why we have problems with it. There's so many of them. But there is a connection with our heart.
Because they were fishmongers as well, weren't they?
Yes, there is a connection. She was adopted, and of course it makes it difficult to work it out exactly how she's connected. But the Moses heart we mentioned is the connection to ours.
But no, that's my stumbling block on that particular tree. I just can't get any further with it.
But you will persevere. You'll get there. Okay, thank you, Gina. Stacey from New Jersey, can you unmute? Can you possibly unmute yourself? Right. What have you been doing? Any work involved in any Anglo-Jewish genealogy at all?
Sure. I'm looking with no success for on my father's side, his grandmother. I found a picture of my great-great-grandmother. Their name is Lutsky. And my great-grandmother is from either Odessa or Kiev. And I've looked on JRI Poland and all of these places, and there's many Lutskys, but there's no one with a daughter named Frida, who is my great-great-grandmother.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what to actually do, or how can I prove that any of these are the Lutskys with no information.
How are you? Well, it's very unlikely we'll be able to help because we're the Anglo-Jewish, so we're the families that have been in this country a long time, this particular special interest group. But how are you spelling Lutsky?
Lutsky.
L-U-T, okay. Okay, right, perhaps Lee would like to advise at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, Stacey and I do talk about it, but I'm afraid I am Stacey's only Anglo ancestor, as it were.
Oh, right.
Relative, I should say. But, yeah, we will take that offline to the Eastern European SIG probably, but I think some of Stacey's relatives did briefly make it to England before they went to America, but yeah. Unfortunately, not much deep Anglo history that we've discovered.
Okay. I asked about the spelling because I have Laski, Laski, but you're spelling your name very differently. So
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I gave a talk about Lusk or Wusk, but I think you and I got into a strange conversation, Doreen, where I was talking about a surname and you were talking about a town, but sometimes the two are similar, but yeah, I think this one's a bit more Ukrainian than Polish, but
yeah. Ray, I haven't asked you, Lee, if you've been doing anything on the Anglo-Jewish.
No, I'm afraid I'm just Mr. Zoom today. Sorry, no Anglo.
Susie Fawkes, have you got any news for us at all? Any progress? Anything new?
I don't think so. Not at the moment. No, I think I mentioned last time that I'd had contact from somebody through Ancestry, which has opened up a great thing because my last relative to England came from Poland in 1868. I mean, most of my relatives came in the early 1700s, but my great-grandfather came then, and I had this great breakthrough about who was his mother and his uncle already in England. I was really delighted with that, just through one little message from Ancestry. So, as I said before, it's well worth having a tree on there so people can contact you. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
But nothing other than that. That pleased me no end, because it's filled in lots of little gaps and whys and wherefores and why people came when they did and where they came to.
Yeah.
I haven't done nothing else particularly.
No. Thank you very much, Susie. Michael Hahn, is there any news at all? If you unmute, Michael Hahn. Oh.
Right, I am here. Sorry, no, nothing to say. I'm just listening in.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I've got some points. I'll talk to Jeanette at the next German meeting in a couple of. But thank you so much.
That's all right. You haven't gone. B, is there anything if you're mute?
Susan,
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm continuing to research my Schaffer family. I know about their Russian background, and I know that they came to the UK in 1905, but I'm still struggling to locate relatives who are alive today. I found one in Essex, but unfortunately he's got no photos and no information. So I'm struggling to make contact with the others. I found a workplace for one of them, and the workplace told me he'd be happy to make contact with me, but unfortunately hasn't been in touch. So I don't want to come across as pestering him, but I'd really love to get in touch with the other cousins whose surnames are Garcia and Finger, and they're all in the Essex area. So it's frustrating because what I really need to see are up-to-date electoral registers, but of course all the archives and such are closed, and it's just impossible to get hold of up-to-date electoral registers. I know I can see some online, but they're not all up to date, like 192, etc. So yeah, I'm hoping that the archives are going to open up soon so that I can make contact with the rest of my long lost family.
Right. Well, Garcia is of course Sephardi.
Yeah.
And Finger, I've seen Finger. I've seen it.
Yes, I think one of the Finger relatives, I'm not sure, may be a quiz master, but I'm not actually sure if that Finger guy is my relative or not. But I really don't know how to make contact with a quiz master. I did find a link that he was involved in a social do at one of the schools in East London. So I rang up that school, but they couldn't give me any information. They just told me to Google him. But nothing came up for, I think his name was Michael Finger, Quizmaster. So I'm kind of stuck with that one.
And can I just say that I worked at the Jewish Chronicle and we had somebody there called Michael Garcia.
No, not a Michael Garcia, but thanks though. No, the guy, this Quizmaster is definitely Michael Finger, and his first cousins, the surname is Garcia, but none of them are Michael Garcia.
No, okay. Have to keep looking because the Garcia is quite, they were here in this country quite a long time.
Yeah.
Thanks, B.
Thank you.
Trish Jones, are you there? Can you unmute? Trish Jones. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Trish.
Hi. Yeah. No, I'm investigating my Sampson side of the family that came to England around 1790 to the port of Hull, and then went across to Liverpool. And my great-great-great-grandfather was an optician. And then the family moved to London. We're trying to trace going back to Holland, but we're hitting brick walls all round, and I'm not quite sure which way to go.
Right. When did they come to this country?
About 1790.
Right.
And then my third time great-grandfather was born in Hull in 1800. And I think my ancestor was called Lyon Sampson, and I think he had a brother called Asher Sampson, who was a philanthropist and was doing quite well. And I think my ancestor wasn't doing very well, but again, it's very difficult to prove that the two were connected. There is a letter in the synagogue in Liverpool in Prince's Road when my ancestor was asking for some help and the letter replied, well, why don't you go to your brother to get some money, because he's obviously got a lot. But whether or not they were actually related and brothers is difficult to know.
The only way really, if you could get their tombstones to see what the Hebrew says, who their father was.
Yeah.
Should say
We put a tombstone in the cemetery in Liverpool, because when Lion was buried, there was no money to put a tombstone. So a group of us arranged to put a tablet at his grave, at his place of rest. Yeah. So no, there's nothing. And then the family married out of the Jewish faith, and so therefore the connections got lost.
Yes. Didn't leave a will at all, did he?
Sorry?
Didn't leave a will, the wealthy brother.
No, Asher did, because he was well off, but my relative didn't.
Didn't mention his family.
Yeah, Asher Sampson left. And it was interesting because my Lion Sampson's his second child was also an Asher Sampson, and that's the line that I come from. But it's quite interesting, the use of the names, because they were quite often used Asher Sampson, Sampson, Asher Sampson. And there was some talk that because they were using the names, they were Sephardic. But then somebody else said no. But again, listening to some of your talks, a lot of people from further south did come up to Amsterdam. And my DNA possibly does suggest some Sephardic, but again, my DNA Jewish connection is quite low, but my cousin's is quite high.
Yeah.
So again, that's, but yes, it's just it's a brick wall. We'll get there one day.
More likely to be Ashkenazi, to be honest with you, than then Samson. And also in Amsterdam, like here, there were many more Ashkenazi than there were Sephardim there.
Yeah.
Larger numbers. So the Sephardim is always the smaller of the two groups.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my brick wall.
Yeah.
If anybody knows how I can get some information, because the trouble is going through the Dutch records isn't the easiest.
No, it's not at the moment.
Can I ask, is this Samson with a P or without a P?
Without a P.
Okay, thank you.
Adrian, do you have anything to report at all with your research?
I've found a couple of relations online through a bit of DNA, and last week when I was discussing the name Brown, Brower.
Oh yes, I heard that.
Yes, and David Tanner got in touch with me and put me in touch with a relative of mine who's in Australia. She sent me an email, but I've yet to reply to her, but we are related. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to know an awful lot about the rest of the family, only her branch, but it would be nice to discuss things with her and see if we can take things further. But apart from that, not an awful lot else. Haven't really had time.
Well, thank you. I don't think I've missed anybody out. If I have, please say. And I'm going to hand over to Lee now for any news items he has.
I just noticed that Sue had her hand up.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of work recently on the siblings of my great-grandfather, Isaac Jacobs. Two sisters married two brothers, and I knew that the older sister and her husband had gone to Belfast, and about 10 of their children were born there. And they then went to New Zealand, and I've rechecked, and I'm following through most of the descendants, and I hope to contact some of them. I found quite a bit on Facebook about some of the descendants. Sadly, very few are still Jewish. The other sister, apart from the marriage in the Great Synagogue records, I couldn't find anything. And then just by chance, I found an entry record in New York from Bremen, but the ship had stopped at Southampton. So they'd gone to the States. I found they had a lot of children. Again, it was the usual family names, and I'm not certain if there are any living descendants. But certainly of my great-grandfather's sisters, I've been able to trace the majority of the descendants of the 5 sisters, but I haven't contacted any of them yet. There are so many. If I contact living relatives I found, I would think it's about 400 to 500.
There you are.
They had huge families. I mean, my great-grandmother was one of 14, but I do know a lot of the descendants of her siblings, and they're all part of the Joshua family, and the Solomon family has reunions periodically, and we had a reunion in the summer led from Australia. And amazing, there was someone I was in touch with there who works in Boreham Wood. Yet to meet, because he works at the studios, which haven't reopened for some of the programs. But I've got several photos of his, I think his great-grandmother and her sisters.
Oh, right, we'll be able to meet him in a few months' time, maybe.
But I'm making progress on every side of my family. There's just too much, and I don't have that much time.
No.
But I've used newspapers a lot. New Zealand, Australia, UK newspapers I found a lot, and American newspapers.
Yeah.
Mainly on Find My Past, and the sort of thing I found is 80th birthday parties fairly recently.
Oh, right.
And sometimes there's a little bit of family history in those reports.
Absolutely.
And I'm also using quite a lot of just Googling names and finding obituaries.
Well, thank you very much, Sue.
It's worth Googling.
Thank you very much. Lee, I'm going to hand over to you now, in case we have any society news.
Okay, just quick reminder of meetings coming up. So 29th November is next Sunday, and that's going to be Jeanette Silverman of Ancestry Pro Genealogists talking about Eastern European ancestral tourism. So I guess Ray will be running that meeting. On the 6th of December, we have the German SIG run by Jeanette. On the 8th of December, we have me speaking at the Chilterns about my second trip to Poland, called Busting a Gut in Łódź, Łomża and Warsaw. And we also have a Manchester regional group meeting coming up shortly after that on the 13th of December. So locks in the calendar. Do join us on Zoom. And that's it from me.
Thank you. So we will close now. On that note, we will close now. Thank you all for coming. Especially thanks to our guest, Sue Greenberg, and also from Stacey from New Jersey. We're delighted to have her. And thank you all very much. And we'll meet again very soon, and hopefully next week. Bye.
Thank you, Dory.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Keep well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.